In the early fall, coho and Chinook salmon can be hard to get to bite due to low water and high water temperatures. Those fish are voracious when they're out in the ocean. They'll bite anything. Those A-run coho are crazy fish. They'll come up and bite right at the boat. But once they start heading up the river, especially when they get past tidewater, they can definitely be harder to get to snap on lures, a lot harder than they are when the water comes up. When the water comes up, a lot of those coho can start to bite freely, hit a lot of techniques. But I have found over the years in Southwest Washington, Columbia River tributaries, in those early times like late August and September, until the rains kind of really hit and make the rivers flush, those fish can be there, but they can be really hard to fish for. So those fish, when it comes to the A-run coho and those early Chinook and low water and high water temperature, it's not as much about finding fish as it is finding the right fish. Because steelhead, for me, is more about finding fish, and then I can usually depend on, at least one or two of them to bite. With a coho or a Chinook, that's not at all true. In a lot of cases, in most cases, I'd rather fish for 3 aggressive fish in a big riffle than 300 non-aggressive fish in a big hole. And it seems a bit extreme, but the fact is if you get a coho that's on the bite and aggressive, they will move way out of their way to attack many different baits. And on the flip side, as many of you have perhaps experienced, and I certainly have myself, you can be sitting on a pile of salmon, they're jumping, you can see them, and for some reason, no matter how precise, how light a line, how perfect of a cure, it's just not happening. So with Chinook, it can actually make a little bit more sense to sit on the hole and kind of wait for the bite. Sometimes that can be the case, especially morning and night. With coho, in my opinion, the best way to approach it is to fish the early morning or the late evening, and then the rest of the day just fish quick in transition water and try to get one that's moving through a riffle or that's going to get hit right on the head with a plug or a twitching jig or a spinner. Now, without a doubt, I think in Southwest Washington, as far as the rivers that I know of, you're not going to find a better low water, high temperature bait than a plug or a wiggle wart or whatever you want to call it, whether it's trolled or casted. Of course, in lower tidewater areas, you can use traditional salmon techniques, but when it comes to those tributary fish that are really hard to bite, for some reason a plug is one of the few things that'll wake them up. Kind of like when the water temperature is super cold and steelhead won't move for a spinner, they will sometimes just get absolutely aggressive towards a plug in really cold water. Same is true in high water. So plugs are annoyingly effective, and they are a great option to target Chinook, coho, and steelhead in the fall. Highly recommend that. A lot of times you don't need any bait on it or anything like that, although it can certainly help, especially if you're anchoring, but that aggressive action just elicits a bite. So it's a lot of fun. Eggs, if you're gonna go with them, can work great. Just keep the cures simple, and the thing is with the Chinook, you might wait for an egg bite to turn on. Usually with the coho, fish some good eggs over them, and if they're not moving on it, cast some artificials, and then move on and try to find the right fish, not necessarily just fish. And really, the best option is to get as far down in the river as you can, because those low water fish will almost always bite more in tidewater or lower river areas than they will upriver. The exception to that would be when they get in your spawn, they might get crazy, but you don't even want to target those fish anyway. So if possible, get as low as you can. And with a plug, the nice thing about that is it just covers so much water in such a short time that you're going to pick out, if there's 20 fish moving through a hole and only one of them is aggressive, in a couple casts, you're going to get in front of that somehow, and that fish will come for it. So such an effective bait to go with a plug, casting them. Retrieve them fast, retrieve them slow. Different days are going to dictate different depths. But colors, they could be pinks, purples, the kind of the Dr. Death, I think that's like a black and pink or black and cerise look is awesome. Straight blacks, chartreuses, I don't know, there's a bunch of good ones that you could go for. But in general, getting something that'll dive pretty close to the bottom and cover a lot of water and also fish effectively, if you got it tuned and it's fishing right and it looks good in the water, it's a great option to just fish and cover as much water as you can with the plug. Use bait. If they're on the bite, sometimes plugs, that's the way to go. I do know last year we had some higher water early on, some colder water, and it was an amazing bait bite. Other years, even bait won't work, and your only bet is to really get them early in the morning with like a plug or when they're moving through a riffle with a plug or something like that. So a lot of different ways to try it. I hope, you know, maybe a little bit of that helped, and wish you the best of luck. And then of course, when the water comes up, it's a whole different ball game. Thanks a bunch.